Hey, what's up, guys? This is a like a really quick install video on the absolute easiest way to install a Raspberry Pi. So the reason that I'm doing this video is I decided to do one of these myself, and the YouTube videos, the guides, the LLM, all it did was feed me a bunch of bullshit, and I spun my wheels for like fucking 10 hours yesterday to get this thing installed. So usually when you look at a video, they'll tell you, oh, it's just as easy as this, it's just as easy as that, that's really simple. But they don't factor in all of the extra bullshit that could possibly happen whenever you're making a pie hole. So I don't edit my videos. This is all one take. I'm not going to show you the websites. If that's what you're looking for, click elsewhere. But if you want a super easy install and some common pitfalls that you will likely run into, let me save you a bunch of Googling and running your head into the fucking wall. So in order to install a Raspberry Pi in a Pi hole, if you know what a Pi hole isn't, it's essentially a localized DNS, right? So it blocks tracking information going back and forth from your internet connection to all of these different trackers. And the trackers, that's what Mr. Sheckelstein uses to build a profile on you in order to market you products. And if you don't think it's as in-depth as what it is, it's absolutely insane. Try using an LLM for a little bit and then having it create a psychological profile on you. These people know what you're going to buy before you even buy it, right? It's absolutely insane. But if you want to have some sort of sovereignty in your life and you want to at least limit the amount of influence that advertisers and big corporations have over your life, you protect it through the use of like DNS and VPNs and stuff like that, since we're all connected to the matrix. So to install and set up a Raspberry Pi, you need four things. You need a Raspberry Pi, right? So this is the Raspberry Pi 02W. You need an SD card, a micro SD card. You need a micro USB cable and a power brick, and you need an SD card reader if you're going to be downloading the program off of the computer. So total setup for this, if you have to buy everything, is about 50, 60 bucks. Now you can limit that by buying the Pi on Amazon, or I'm sorry, on Alibaba. Skip Amazon. Amazon's going to double the price of it. If you're really impatient like I am, you can pay 30. But if you go to AliExpress, Alibaba, eBay, you can buy these things all day long for $15. And this is the Raspberry Pi 02. So if you don't know what a Raspberry Pi is, it's essentially a mini computer. So you can do all kinds of shit with this. You can hook it up to a monitor, you can use it for basic computing tasks, you can automate stuff, whatever. It's really, really neat. So Raspberry Pi 02, and you don't need a fancy one, all you need is the 02. So the 02W, power brick, cable, SD card reader. So in order to start this process, easiest way to do it is you're going to first hook up the SD card reader to your computer. You're going to plug in your SD card. You're going to make sure that Windows finds it. So when you go open up File Explorer, make sure that Windows finds the SD card reader. If it doesn't, you're going to go into disk management. You're going to make sure that the drive is partitioned, right? So that's as easy as right-clicking it. You'll make sure that everything is set up and good to go. Should be fine. Sometimes it's not, but in order to address that, you go to disk management, you find the drive, and then you right-click where it says like how much is allocated, and then you partition it. It's brand new, should be fine. If you have to redo shit, or if it can't populate the drive, that's where you find that. And then if you really get fucked, you have to go into PowerShell and run a bunch of code in order to tell the computer to pull it back up, which will be hopefully not something you had to deal with. I had to deal with that, but you can find all of the code on the internet. So you hook up your SD card reader, you plug in your SD card, you make sure that Windows finds it, and then you go to, it's like Window Pi installer. So you'll go to the to Raspberry Pi installer. So you go to the Raspberry Pi website, it'll say like download imager at the top for Windows. Click that, install it to your desktop, run it. You'll have a bunch of different options for which Pi OS you want to install. If you're just doing a Pi hole, all you need is OS Lite. And to find that, you click, it's like underneath the highlighted ones, it says like more options or something like that. Download, install that. While you're setting up the process, while you're doing all of this, you'll need to enable SSH, type in your internet ID. So that's going to be your 2.4 gigahertz ID. My router had 5 gigahertz and it had 2.4. The Pi 02 does not run on 5. So I spent like 3 hours trying to diagnose this, 3 hours sticking with an LLM, and then come to find out it will run on 2.4 gigahertz. It will not run on 5 gigahertz. So make sure it's the 2.4. So you find your 2.4 SSID and the password, you enter that. Whenever you're creating your profile for the Pi hole, for the Pi, you find your username, you enter a username, and then you enter a password. Make sure you enter a password, because if you don't, you won't be able to log into it later. So you do that, it'll flash the drive, right? So super easy. If you don't know where to find your 2.4 gigahertz login, you go to 192.168.0.1 in your browser window, and then you log into the admin panel. The password is usually admin and password, unless you changed it, and then you find you know, where to do that at. So then you put that into the Raspberry Pi whenever you're setting it up. That's where you find it. So do that, right? Wait until it flashes. Eject it from your computer. So you right click, eject, and then it's going to eject it. It's going to be good to go. So then after that, you slot it into this hole right here, facing down, push that fucker in there, and then you hook up your micro USB to this middle port, this guy right here. Hook it up to that one. You don't want that one, you want this one. Hook it up to this one right here. And then you plug it in and you wait. And you wait. And it's gonna blink a bunch of times. It'll go, you have a little green LED indicator. It's gonna blink, blink, blink. The blinking will get slower, and then eventually it's gonna turn solid. This takes 3 to 5 minutes. So 3 to 5 minutes later, you go back into your admin panel, and then you find a list of connected devices. So you find a list of connected devices to make sure that the Raspberry Pi is showing up. It'll be whatever you named it. You're gonna get the IP address off of that, and then you're gonna create a static IP address for that. Create a static IP address. It's gonna default to IPv4, and that's fine. Set it to static IP, right? So you set static IP, boom, you're good to go. Awesome. Okay, cool. Now you're going to open up Windows PowerShell, and you're going to run code that you find off of Raspberry Pi installer Pi hole code. Just type that shit into Google. It'll be the one that's officially from Raspberry Pi. Copy and paste it. Make sure you include the weird, and then it's like a weird line, and then bash. So do that, right? And it's gonna run a bunch of code. It's gonna ask you, do you want to continue? You know, this might be sketchy. Type in yes. It's gonna do all that shit. You have more code to run. You have more code to run. And then you will eventually get a bunch of like pop-ups, and it's gonna say, you know, do you want local query? You know, how do you want this? How do you want that? Do whatever works best for you. So do all that shit. Right? So do all that shit, click all through it. It'll all make sense whenever you're there. And then it's gonna give you a login and password for the portal for the Raspberry Pi. Enter in the login and password. Now, you may notice that the Raspberry Pi is not hitting a bunch of queries. So you're going, oh, is this working? Is this not working? What's going on? So there's two different things that may be going on. Your router may be defaulting to IPv6, and if it's defaulting to IPv6, it's bypassing the Pi. Right? So then you open up, it's either in tools or it's in settings, and you disable DHCP in your admin, and then you enable it in the Raspberry Pi portal. Wow. It's going to ask you for an IP range. Set that to a realistic IP range. The Pi hole will give you examples. Just set it to that. Fuck it, you're done, whatever. So you're done with that. Wow. Okay, so now it's going to start working. Right? And you're going to see it's going to have query, and then a list of blocked queries, and that's all good to go. So you're cooking with grease now, right? So now you want to go, wow, I really want to limit Mr. Sheckelstein's collection of information from me. So how do I do that? So you find different lists. It's on like GitHub and like some other websites. You find list, and if you Google it, it'll give you list of tracker, blah, 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 blah. And there are a few compiled lists that you can find. You copy the URL and then you paste it into the portal. It'll tell you where. It's pretty self-explanatory. I'm not sitting in front of my computer, but it'll tell you where. So you copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, and then you do gravity. It's something gravity, elevate gravity or some shit like that, and then it downloads those lists to your Pi-holes interface. Wow. And then it's working, and then you're good, and then you're fine, and then you're done, and that's it. So like I say, I don't edit my videos. I'm not going to show you the websites. All of this shit is really self-explanatory. It's really fucking easy. Follow these instructions and you'll have a Pi-hole. Neat little Pi-hole. Look at my Pi-hole. So that's it, guys. That's just, and basically all this is a local DNS, right? So what you may run into as well, this is something I ran into, I had already enabled DNSs on my browsers, right? So rather than funnel it through the Pi-hole, it's funneling it through those. So I had to move it back to the Pi-hole, which depending on your browser and your operating system and shit like that, it's going to be a little bit different, but that's something that you can explore and figure out. So anyway, guys, this is Marty McFly's super duper easy video on how to install a Pi-hole. I love you. Goodbye.